Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 33rd eBay Tech Talk already. We are here this evening to give you two talks. Ignazio and Roddi will talk about UI tests with multiple iOS simulators. Enjoy.
Okay, good evening. The second talk. My name is Roddi. My colleague, Ignazio, we will do the talk together. We will talk about parallelizing UI tests on iOS, and I will kind of show you why it is a good idea to have UI tests in the first place, and why you want to parallelize them afterwards. I will tell you what kind of tools we use, and Ignazio will go into all the details. So, does that work? No, it doesn't. Okay. Why UI tests? If I would put it into one picture, it would be this one. You see, the propeller is working, it has a unit test. The chimney is working, it has a unit test. So loads of other stuff is working, it has a unit test, but the ship is sinking nevertheless. Because somehow you didn't test the whole system. And seriously, let me show you a video to really demonstrate what I mean. So can I do this? Okay, we open up the app. We say we are searching for a car, and we want to use a professional seller. So I'm filtering here a little bit, and when we have found our car, let's take that Skoda, and we say, okay, this is a cool car. Let's just put that into our favorites, and then I decide, okay, let's look at the seller, and this guy obviously has some other cool cars. Well, maybe not, but I'm still want to follow that that seller, and you see this follow button went green. So I go to my page and I see, okay, I have this car in my favorites, and here the follow button is green, right? Because I followed this guy already. Then I go to all the users I follow, and the guy I followed is on top. And when I look at all his cars, I see, okay, the button is green again because I followed this guy. Now, I see, okay, those cars are not so good after all. I unfollow the guy, and I go back. The guy is gone from my list, and if I look at the ad in my favorites again, the button is not green anymore, but because I'm not following this guy anymore. So this was just an example. A little journey through the app, and you could see we had this problem with the follow button that it went green, not green in some cases. So this is the kind of thing where you would want to have a UI test for. But I just remembered I wanted to show you a few other things too. So sorry about this. I need my presenter view notes. Where's the video? Yes. Give me So I don't know how good you followed the video, but there were some problems that were in there. the first thing was that well, when I favorite the ad, the star did not go into the right tab down here. It should go into Mines, not in inserieren. But this is something that we can't actually test with a UI test because it's an animation. I don't know if someone knows how to do UI tests on animations. Probably no one does. But the interesting thing is happens when you see up there, it says gewerblicher Anbieter. So this is still correct. But if we go into Mines, into the followed user, suddenly there is no user anymore. There's no, it doesn't even say gewerblicher Anbieter. And if you go even further, it says private Anbieter up there. So the whole thing is somehow broken, and it's something that we didn't catch with a unit test. So this is something you might want to do a UI test for. Just as a little demo. So go on, come on. So what is our UI setup? The first thing, we run our UI tests with KIF, Keep It Functional. It's a framework that is around for some time now. It basically finds views and controls, and it taps and swipes and enters tests and those, just as you've seen in the other talk. Then we use FB snapshot test case. This is quite cool. So you can take a snapshot of any view there is, and to record it. And if you really run the tests, you take the snapshot again, and if something changes, your test goes red. There is a little plugin for Xcode which actually shows you when a test is failing, and you can see the comparison between the recorded one and the failing one. And the last thing we are using is called VCR URL session, and this one is quite handy because we record all of the network calls, the requests and the responses, and when the test actually runs, we only use the recorded responses inside the test. This speeds up the test quite a bit, but the real benefit of it is the tests are way more reliable. So you might wonder, why not use Xcode UI tests, because it's built into Xcode. I did a slide on that because I think it's worth noting that in Xcode UI tests, the app and the test actually run in different processes. This has some things like there's no snapshots are possible. Xcode actually does snapshots, but it only takes snapshots, so then when one of your tests goes red, you can see what's on screen when the test goes red, but it doesn't compare these snapshots. And the second one is the mocking of input data is very, very hard. You have to kind of build it into your app that actually runs, and it's not part of your tests, but part of your app, and it's kind of mwah. And the other thing is, it's even slower than KIF because it reruns the app for every single test case. So if you have a small app and it doesn't do much, you might get away with it, but we don't. And it does not work on the iOS 8 simulator. So if you really want to test on iOS 8, you're out of luck. Let's come to the main topic, parallelizing UI tests. Why? Well, the obvious answer is speed. We have about 600 unit tests which execute in about 18 seconds, which is not fast, but it's fast enough to just run them. And we have about 60 UI tests which take 6 minutes to run. So, but there's an additional problem. Can you spot the difference between the left and the right thing? Has anyone a guess? The time, yeah, apart from the time. Apart from the time, I'll tell you. Thank you, Apple. They changed the system font between iOS 8 and iOS 9. Helvetica versus San Francisco. Our designer insisted on having the system font on the app. So, who wants to guess? Which one is iOS 8 and which one is iOS 9? iOS 8 on the left. Who's for iOS 8 on the left? No one. 1, 2 person. iOS 8 on the right? Okay, no one wants to guess. iOS 8 is on the left. So this means we have to run our tests on iOS 8 and iOS 9. And since we have an iPad app, we have to run the tests on the iPad app on iOS 8 and iOS 9, which means we run the tests 4 times, right? For all these combinations. So there's a low-hanging fruit here. We parallelize those 4 runs, and we cut the time into a quarter, about. Right? So what's next? Yeah, without changing the project. That's the important part here. So the how. The first tool we use is Xcode tool. It's kind of a stand-in for Apple's Xcode build that builds on the command line. It does roughly the same thing, but it has some things to it which makes it all possible. The second one is called SimControl. It's a Ruby interface to Xcode run. Nothing fancy, but you will see. And we have some Ruby glue code there, which resets the simulators, compiles the test code, starts parallel simulators, runs the test suite in each simulator, and then collects the results. And, well, of course, displays the results. So this code, this interesting code, Ignazio is going to show it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roddi. So to show you something, guys, we created a demo project. This project is called the emoji cart. It's a straightforward application. It looks like e-commerce application. So the user must log in at the beginning. Then he can see the list of items that we want to sell. In this case, we sell emoji. That is a cool side business. And of course, he can add or remove product to his cart. And then at the end, clicking on the call to action button, the user can go to the cart. And for you that do know how this emoji is called, this is called the canback emoji. And if you don't know why, you can search on YouTube. The video is TDD that. This basically is canback that say that everything is a trade-off. Okay, but too fast. This is the main core, this is the main functionality of our application. We want to be sure that this functionality works and works perfectly in every release of our application. If this doesn't work, we are going to lose money. So we want to test this application, and we want to be sure 110%. We want to be 100% sure that this works. And how can we be so sure? Of course, we write our test. How we write the test? We write a lot of unit tests for testing each single components. Like we write our tests for the plugin view controller and for the list view controller, and as well for the cart view controller. But what is the problem? The problem is that probably we need to write tests also for the communication between this part. We need to write tests to ensure that the communication between this view controller and the login, and as well with the cart view controller, it's working as we intended, right? So what we do, we learned that to test this case, to test the isolation, we write mock. And this is at the end how our application or how our test looks like. We have a system ending test, that is what we want to test, for example, the login view controller, and we have all around all this mock object. So I don't know you, but I always, when I write this kind of test, I have a voice on my ear that say, is it the code that will execute on the live version of the application, or is it something different? Are you sure that you tested everything, or is it something that maybe you miss? How the unit tests work? The unit tests work that if you change one line of code, you have a red test, right? This is our goal. But how can you be sure that if you change one line of code, you have a red test? This is not really, really easy. So what we do UI test for be sure that this stuff works for each release. And Roddi already said how we write the test. I can show you some code. Let's put this away. And go to here. Sorry, I'm not seeing what I'm typing. So this is our Xcode project. And what we have here is a UI test that is written with KIF. And you can say that we are applying more or less the same approach that Chris said before. So we split our functionality in a small chunk. And at the end, our UI test looks like this one. So we start taking a screenshot of the initial state of the view controller. Then we log in. We had 2 whales to the cart. Then we had the Ken back emoji because it's cool. Then we had the sunglasses, and then we validate with another screenshot. We validate the order page. And you can see here below how the tests are really executed. I mean, we are accessing directly to the object, to the view. But the main topic of this talk was about parallelizing test. So how we can execute this test in a parallel way. Let's open a text editor. So first of all, we want to be sure that our tests are executed always in the good environment. We want to be sure that all the tests run with the same version of Ruby, with the same version of Xcode, and with all the same environment. So we have a bash script. Of course, on our live setup, the bash script is more complex than this, but we have this bash script where we select the Xcode version, and then with the RVM, that is Ruby Version Manager, we ensure that we are using always the right version of Ruby. Sorry. Then, the real task is just this rake task. So we grouped our task into rake task because we think that using rake tasks make all the tests more easy to execute and to read. So, and this is what we do. I can try to explain line by line. I have just 20 lines of code. Let's keep this launch method. The first thing that we do is that we get the path of Xcode tool. As Roddi said before, we're using Xcode tool because only with Xcode tool is possible to run a multiple test on multiple simulator. And because we want to have a reliable test, we put the version of Xcode tool directly into the repository. So we get the path here that is inside our repository. By the way, the difference between Xcode tool and the Xcode build is that with Xcode build, is it possible to run a test in a specific simulator, but if you are already running a test in one simulator and you try to run the second one, the first one is killed. So, and this is why we use Xcode tool, because they do kind of a magic, and when you run the first test on the first simulator, you can run the second one without killing the first one. This is what Xcode tool gives to us. Second thing that we do, okay, we created the base command. This is not executing nothing. This is just appending some parameters to Xcode tool. And the important thing is that we use this derived data folder. This is super important because this gives us the opportunity to build the application only once. Because otherwise, if you don't specify the derived data folder, every time that you build, the derived data folder will be different, and you need to build the application 3 times or 4 times, depends how many simulators do you have. But in this case, we pass the path, and all the compiled file are stored into this folder. Then we use the gem that Roddi told before, this SimControl. This is a Ruby gem that is a wrapper around the Xcode run simulator. So this gem is able to give an interface for executing and configuring iOS simulator. In this case, for example, we are creating 2 simulators. One is iPhone 5, the other one is iPhone 6. And we run the latest version of Xcode. For each device, we run this device, we launch the device, and this is the function that we skip at the beginning. So this is just some wait line to be sure that the simulator is up and running. And then finally, we build the project. So this is another thing that Xcode tool is able to do. This is called build test. This will not build the whole application. This is smart enough to build only the file that are required to build the test. If you have some classes that are not part of the test target, Xcode tool just will not build. And there, we start some magic, because we start creating the thread. Of course, if we at this point, if we start running the test in one line and then on the next line we start the other test, this will be not executed in parallel. This will execute the first test, and then when the first test is completed, we will execute the second one. But we don't want. We want to create some magic with the thread. So we loop into this array that contains at this moment 2 devices, and we create a new thread. And in this thread, we execute the test. So this is the base command, this is Xcode tool, and we finally run the test. The destination is important. The destination is the ID of the running simulator. So in this case, this means that in one thread, we will run the test on the device iPhone 5, and on the other thread, we run the device on the iPhone 6. So the tests run here, both. and they will have some exit code that we collect here. We want to collect the exit code from each thread, right? We store this exit code, and then we kill the simulator because we want to keep our machine clean, right? At the end, there are these two parallel threads that are running. We need to wait for both threads. We need to that every thread finish, and on Ruby this is done by this join method. So we wait for each thread, and then we collect the exit code from each thread. So and we use here as an exit code of our script. So basically this means that if at least one of the thread has a return code that is 1 or whatever, we return an exit code. And this is basically our script. Thanks to Xcode simulator and Xcode tool, we are able to run the test in parallel. So now we keep a finger crossed and we try to execute. So let's put this here. So we use bundle exec rake test, and we show. At the beginning, we should see that the application is compiled, and you cannot see because I have a double screen, but in the meantime, the simulator are starting. 1 and 2. In this case, it's just 2, but for our live application, we have 4, for example. Yeah, it works. So, and this, we are running the UI test. So we log in, we select the whale emoji at the beginning, then we select the back, and then the smiling face, and it works. On the output here, we should see that now we have a 2 run test. That's it. I have only the last one slide. So if you are interested on this topic, you should really see this slide. So this is where you can find all the tools that we are using, from Keef, the snapshot, the 2 gem from Plu that we are using, and the repository for Xcode tool. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell, sorry. We are using a custom version of Xcode tool because the current version of Xcode tool contains some bugs that we fixed, and until they merge the pull request, we are using our custom version. And this is the demo project that, if you are interested, you can download. Now, if there are questions, 2 questions, please.
Does this technology because of the emoji card contains the script which you created?
Sorry again.
The script which you created for parallel running of the test on the simulator? There is a script, like a script you created for running the test in parallel? The project contains it? This on the GitHub?
The Ruby script is part of the repositories, yes. So you can find, if you fork or if you don't clone the repository, you will find the project, and inside the rake task for building the test in parallel. No.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
So I have a question, but first I would like to defend the XUI test a bit. So we use it since quite recently. I think that until now it serves a purpose. I would disagree with the two facts that it doesn't take screenshots, because can do it. I mean, not just building Xcode screenshots, but there are external frameworks that you might use to do that. It might not do the comparison, but it's not the framework to do that. And also the fact that it's a black box, or the app is a black box that the test doesn't have any access to. It's not necessarily bad. I mean, we do have a testing automation engineer who is sitting next to me, and he doesn't necessarily have to know the interface from the app. So he's able to test in his own way without messing with the app itself. And the question is, it is my impression that UI tests are end-to-end, which means that they should test the entire functionality, including the APIs of the app, so actual data that come from the server. How can you do that, given that you give screenshots? Are the data constantly the same or not?
Well, I can answer. So you're totally right. When you write your UI test, probably you want to also test the network. But this is probably, I don't know, the naming is always a naming convention. The integration test, maybe, I don't know. But we also do this. So when we write the test for the first time, we effectively make network calls. And we use this library that my colleague told before, and as VCR, this one. We use this library to record the response from the server. So this means that from time to time, meaning every week or every 10 days, we switch again and we try to re-fetch again the response from the server. And we compare at this point, we need to compare manually the screenshot with the previous one, because of course the API give us, I don't know, a different list of ads in that case. So I totally agree with you, but in this case we are able to run the tests fast and are more reliable, so because we don't need to care about the changes on the API. So this is more similar to unit test, I don't know. But when we switch the records to on, in that case, it's a really an integration test. Do you want to add something, Roddi? Another question.
So first question about parallelization actually, because we also tried to integrate them in parallel on a single machine, but then it turned out that it's maybe too slow because simulator is usually very resource hungry, and if we have, for example, a heavy application, then it's possible that they are too slow. For example, if we use like 2 simulators in parallel on a single machine, so we ended up using like multiple machines. So we still execute them in parallel, but on multiple machines, like in the network, and then collect the information. So how you why you decided to execute this on a single machine? Is there some special reason for this, or you don't have enough machine? And which machine it should be? Maybe this is some powerful Mac server, I mean from money perspective. What is that?
I don't know which type of application are you creating, right? Maybe is it possible that your application is very heavy? I don't know, it's a video game or it's a CPU consuming, but I application is not. So we have a couple of Mac Minis where we run not unit test, not UI test in parallel, but we run a Jenkins job in parallel. It's a normal Mac Mini with an SSD disk and a lot of RAM, like 16 gigabytes. And no, there is no slowdown. The only
you run in parallel on those?
Sorry?
How many simulators you run?
4. We are running 4 simulators. 2 iOS, because we still support iOS 4, so we have 2 iPhone with iOS 8.4 and 9.3, and we also have the iPad version, so other 2 simulators for the iPad version. Of course, one thing that is super important on the Mac Mini is the HDMI dongle. So if you do not have any display, in that case, it will become super slow.
But and the other question is about this Facebook framework for screenshotting. Actually, we also use it, and there is a big pain with this framework because, as you said, when Apple decided to change the font, for example, then we have to prepare different screenshots, and also for iOS screen, we also have to prepare different screenshots. For example, if you decide to test on iPhone 6s, where screen resolution is different and we have to prepare different screenshot. For example, the designer decides to change something that we also have to replace screenshot. It's very time consuming, so how do you deal with this?
No, we do not have any silver bullet in that case. Yes, of course, we have for simulators, so if the designer decides to change the color of the navigation bar that is present in every screen, this means that you need to run the test with the record mode too, and re-record all the screen. But we do like quite often, and at the end you just run the test, 6 minutes. We run on 4 simulators 6 minutes. And then we also have some script that generates an HTML page with the difference of the screenshot, and you just with the changed part become red, and you just
open source?
Sorry?
Is it also open source, the script?
No, it's not, but it's pretty simple, and we can put off open source. It's not a problem. Yeah, sure.
Nice.
Sure, sure. And okay, and in that case, it takes just like, depends on how many screenshots we have, but minutes, like 10 minutes to scroll down the page and check if the difference is just on the navigation bar color. Oh, no question.
Do you have like the accessibility labels somewhere so that they don't get lost? Because there will be a lot, like hundreds of buttons in the same app. Do you have them somewhere, or do you write tests when you're writing the app?
We try to make our application usable also for people that have problems. So we started using the accessibility label even before running the test with KIF. So basically, we use just the same accessibility label that we have on the main app. So if the button is called the follow user, we use exactly the same accessibility label on the test. Question?
Just one question regarding like permissions when you need to access, for example, the photos of the users.
You also tested in your, you have this also included in your UI test, and how do you like solve this problem? Because we had the problem like this dialog totally blocked our UI test and we were not able to run them.
I have to answer with the same answer that's my colleague. We do not test the negative case, but with SimCTL we can fake the permission. So for the test we ensure that we have the permission.
Okay, fair enough.
You have a question? No. Cool. Thank you, guys.